still making our way through the book of Exodus. Our next prayer chair date is set for Friday, September 24th at 7 p.m. in the church. All are welcome to join. The next date of our fellowship dinner is Friday, October 1st at the West E Diner. There will be a sign-up sheet in the back, so please RSVP. The women's group will be meeting on September 13th due to Labor Day. This will take place at Chris Balog's house. Also, anyone willing to teach on a Sunday in the loft, please feel free to sign your name on the calendar on the back wall. Thank you. At this time, the loft and the lookout are dismissed.
She does that again. We have to subtitle it. Good grief, chick. WVU, which is weird because she's going to Cal U. I guess her boyfriend's at WVU. I have no idea what she was even doing at WVU. But yeah, we need to. What was that? Ah, well, it's noisy, is what it is. Well, I can't think of anything I want to jump on more than that. I can't think of anything I'd rather jump on than that. I'll tell you what. Yeah, right here in the church from listening to announcements. So, I don't know. We may have to. Yeah. We may have to run live announcements tomorrow, Victoria. I don't know if we want to play that again. I had no idea. I'm innocent. Okay. We're starting a brand new series. It's not really a series. I'm calling it Hard Problems. This is something that kind of came to me while I was doing my studies on the other thing. We just finished Satan's Place, those of you who've been here for a while. We just finished that, and this is a new kind of idea. I thought it was going to be one sermon, to be honest with you, but it clearly is mushroomed into more than that. I don't know how long it's going to go, but let me tell you what happened. I was in my Bible study, quiet time that I do in the mornings now, and for some reason, I was reflecting on this problem that I have with the book of Acts. I don't know if you guys have problems with any of the books of the Bible. I have a couple, but my problem with the book of Acts is simply this. I read it, and I read about the Christian church in the early days, which is clearly the Christian church as it's supposed to be, and I come away always thinking, why aren't we more like them? Because I've been in church, I'm a preacher's kid. I've been in church my whole life. I've been to many churches, every denomination you can name, including non-denominationals. In my entire life, I have never seen a church like the church I read about in the book of Acts. And not just one of the churches in Acts, it's like all of them. Now, somewhere along the line, it goes off the rails. If you remember our series on the 7 churches, the book of Revelation, they kind of get to, now those churches sound a lot like us. But the church that we see that gets started in the book of Acts is just so different from anything that I've ever experienced. It's not like it's like if you watch a Pee Wee hockey team and you watch the Penguins play, it's a faster game, but it's still the same game. We're not even in the same arena with those guys. It's like a completely different world. And I'm always troubled by this because I'm thinking it seems like as a church we should be getting back to that. And we don't seem to be. And I don't know how to get us there. And I want to get back to that as a Christian, and I don't never seem to get there. So I had my quiet time with the Lord, and I was asked this question as I've asked many, many times. And after that was all done, then I go eat breakfast. So I'm sitting there eating breakfast, and I'm a cord cutter, so I usually watch something on YouTube. And I don't know if you guys have this experience, but YouTube, if you watch it all the time, it starts thinking it knows you, and it starts making these recommendations, videos, and supposedly their algorithm's this brilliant thing that manipulates us. Well, you couldn't prove it by me. I mean, most of the time, they're offering me videos to watch that make no sense at all. They miss by a mile, or my favorite one is when, I'll have bought something, and so for the next month, I'll get more ads for those things, enough. I bought one toilet seat for one toilet. I'm not opening a store. I don't need to buy 30 of them. Could you stop with the toilet seat ads? But every now and then they'll give me one, and it catches me for some reason. And I'm like, I don't know. I this was kind of catchy. So I kind of got hooked, and I was watching it. And kind of in the back of my mind was this question that I had asked in my quiet time was this. I see this, Jesus saying, truly, truly, I say to you, the one who believes in me, the works that I do, he'll do also, and greater. And we're supposed to be doing that. It's kind of in the back of my mind. For some reason, it just kind of won't leave me. And then I'm starting to watch this YouTube video. It's a very strange thing because I'm thinking, I don't see this because I don't know anybody who's been risen from the dead lately. And so I got this disconnect, and then this video comes up. And the video was really weird because it's a doctor. It was just a doctor who was, started to talk. But he caught me because he's a doctor who's talking to people my age and men of a certain age. And he was talking about this guy who came into his practice. And he has a kind of a practice. He's an emergency room doctor, but he's got this specialty practice on helping people avoid the emergency room, basically, is what his practice is now. And a guy's named Dr. Ford Brewer. And I'm sorry. So he was talking a story to this guy, and I guess enough of this guy's story rang true with me. And I think that's what pulled me in. Because this is a guy about my age, a little bit older than me, but about my age. And he, like me, is married to a younger wife. Only unlike me, he actually has younger children. And he also has a family with a history of heart problems. And so as he's kind of getting to be this age, we start thinking about things you don't think about when you're 20. Because, when I was 20, the fact that my father, my grandfather died at age 82, and then later my father would die at age 84, when I was younger, that didn't really hit me very hard, but now I'm 60, and now it's like 20 years, and now all of a sudden it's like that's getting closer, where before when you're 20, that's forever ago. It's like, 80. Who knows by then? But so I have some of those kind of same thoughts, but this guy had really strong issue because he wanted to see his children graduate from high school and graduate from college, which is pretty natural. But he was starting to wonder if he was going to make it because his dad didn't. And so he starts wondering about that. And so he has an appointment with his doctor. And he goes to see his doctor, and he tells him, I'm not really feeling well as they run all these tests. And he came back with one of the worst diagnoses you can get in that situation. He had something that's known as CHF. I'll give you the initials for these things. I don't have to tell you what it really means. It means congestive heart failure, which basically means your heart's almost done. It's starting to fail, which is not what he wanted to hear, right? And so he said, well, what does that mean? And the doctor says, well, it means I'd like to get aggressive with some medication right now, and we can maybe extend this a little bit. But this is it. This is DNA. This is your genetics. This is what's going to happen. And I hate to give it to you straight like that, and he says, how much longer? And I said, well, we don't know. Could be 5 years. Could be longer. But you're starting into it. Now, when you're kind of hit with a diagnosis like that, you only have a couple of choices. One, you can just ignore it. Some people do that. Or you can say, well, I'm going to go holistic medicine and go become a vegan or something. That'll fix everything. Or you can do what this guy did. He starts, well, let me get a second opinion at least. So he starts coming around. He ends up talking to Dr. Ford Brewer, whatever his name is, and Dr. Ford Brewer, Ford Brewer. And so he gets an appointment with them. He has all of his stuff sent over, and Dr. Brewer sits down. I'd like to meet this guy because I love this meeting. He sits down with the guy. He says, well, honestly, I've taken a look at your diagnosis from your doctor, and I agree with it. This is really a bad situation. All of your tests are the wrong way, and it certainly appears that you have, congestive heart failure begun. He says, but here's the thing. If you were sitting before me right now as a healthy man, carrying the weight you should have, and I was looking through your blood tests, and I saw your sugar levels where they should be, and you were taking care of yourself by eating right, exercising, getting plenty of sleep, and you didn't have a high-stress job, I would say you're done. Everything that man told you was true. But I'm looking at a man who's borderline obese. I love that. I can imagine the doctor says, I'm looking at a man who's borderline obese, who frankly, if he's not borderline diabetic, is going to be there pretty soon. I'm seeing from the diary you kept of what you ate last week, horrible food choices. I see that you're not exercising. I see that you don't sleep right. And from what you're telling me, you have a very high-stress job. So the good news is you have hope. Because the good news is your heart isn't dying, you're killing it. And if you decide, if you make a choice right now that you don't want to kill your heart anymore, you have a chance. I mean, it's no guarantee. He said in the late 90s, there was a huge study, several huge studies done where they followed heart patients around. It took them years to gather all the data together, put it all together, and come out with reports, and it took years to get peer reviewed, but it's just coming out like in the last decade that turned cardiology on its head. He said, what we discovered was something we did not know. We always thought that the heart was basically purely genetics. You either have a good ticker or you don't. There's not much we could do about it. He said, but what we learned was the way you live is impacting your heart as much as your genetics is, and possibly even more. And more than that, the thing we discovered, which was really incredible, was if you stop doing this, your heart can actually heal. And so if you make the choice that you're going to stop killing your heart has a chance. He says, I can't promise anything because genetics do come into play, but you have a chance of healing your heart or letting your heart heal and living a much longer life than the way you're going right now. And this man says, well, I'm highly motivated. He says, you would think so. You would think you'd be highly motivated. And I'm telling you, before we even start this, that a lot of people don't make it. They don't make it through the program. Because it's not you make one decision and that's it. That'd be nice. You could just make one decision right here, right now. You could swear on your mother's grave, and that's it. Everything would be better. That's not how this works. You're going to have to make 100 decisions, dozens every day. And every one of those decisions matters because this is a cumulative problem. And to fix it, you have to be cumulative. You can't skip. You've got to be there. He says, there's going to be times the next 2 weeks you're going to hate me because you're going to be hungry and you can't have the stuff you want. And when you take a look at that sweet stuff that you love so much, here's what you have to tell yourself. I love this dessert, but I love my family more. And therefore, I will not eat it. Not once a week, but a dozen times a day. And you know what? Most people can't do it. Now that was a really sobering thing for me to watch because there's enough there that parallels my life. I don't know if I'm borderline obese yet, but I'm carrying more with it. I mean, a lot of that stuff, I'm like, wow. And I thought, can I do that? Would I be willing to do that? And that brought me one of my favorite quotes, Mike Tomlin, back when we were winning, and he had quotes I loved. This is great. Here's what he said on the way to the Super Bowl. He would tell guys this. It doesn't matter what you're capable of. What matters is what you are willing to do. That's really what it comes down to, because anybody can turn down a donut. Can you turn it down 100 times? And so from there, I got up, and I got my dog, and we went out to the park. And so I had these two things rattling around in my head. Well, I'm trying to praise the Lord and do the things I do when I'm in a park. And I can't shake the fact that these two things seem to be related. And I started thinking, God, are you telling me something that isn't just on the physical level here, but on the spiritual level? What if you can only hold on to as much faith as your heart has the capacity to receive? See, the thing is that the Bible is a book, honestly, about the heart. More than anything else, the Bible is about the heart. And it's not just the Old Testament, it's a New Testament. At its core, the Bible's a book about heart. I know it doesn't seem like that. Now, New Testament, yeah, you can kind of see it. Jesus says things like this. People ask, what's the most important commandment? He says, the most important commandment is this. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God the Lord is one, and you shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart. First and foremost, heart. With all of your heart. Now, when Jesus is talking about the heart, he's not talking about the organ any more than he's talking about the mind, he's talking about the brain. He's talking about the spiritual heart, where your soul is, where your will resides. That's what God's talking about. It's not the organ. It's your spiritual heart. And I know that. I know when he says heart, he's not talking about my physical heart. He's talking about my soul and my will. He says, you got to put all that into God. You got to love the Lord there. And I said, okay, well, that's okay. But the Old Testament, it's not just all about the heart. I always thought, if somebody asked me what's the Old Testament about, I've told you it's about the law. It's full of the law. I mean, everything's about I love your law and all these different things. It gives us the law. It certainly has to be about the law, right? Well, except that thing that Jesus just says actually shows up in the Old Testament first in Deuteronomy. So for openers, we have that. But the thing is, even all the writing about the law isn't about the law. The Old Testament's not about the law. Here's why I know that's true. Nobody keeps the law. In the entire Old Testament, nobody keeps the law. How can the book be about the law when everybody fails to keep it? See, the law is not there to teach you what to do and what not to do. It is. I mean, of course, that's a purpose of the law. But the real purpose of the law is to reveal the heart. Because by God giving us the law, it shows his heart because he keeps it. And by us not keeping it, shows our heart. And that's really the problem that we have to deal with throughout the entire Bible. It's not just about the law, it's about the heart all the way through. In fact, in Isaiah it says this people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. Now, if it's just about the law, honoring with the lips is good enough. See, this is the problem with the Pharisees. This is why they had such a big problem in Jesus. We're doing all the things we're supposed to do. Their heart isn't in it, but they're doing it. You can't hit me, God. I'm doing what you said to do. And Jesus comes along and says, it's not about what you're doing, it's your heart. It's why you're doing it. Honor me with your lips and keeping your heart far from me is nothing. He says, in vain they're worshiping me. They're teaching doctrines, the commandments of men. They're teaching like I gave it to them, but I didn't. This is their stuff, not mine. God always cares about the heart. He chooses David because of the heart. He rejects Saul because of the heart. He's always picking people because of their heart. And he's always talking about their hearts. And David, a guy who knows a little bit about it, talks an awful lot about the heart as well. In Proverbs, there's this little thing given to us. Above all else, this is the wise Solomon saying, guard your heart, for everything flows from it. The center of everything. Your heart's not right, you can't keep the commandments because you're not even. It's just a game to you. Keep your mouth free of perversity. Keep corrupt talk from your lips. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet. Be steadfast in all your ways. Do not turn to the right or left. These are all things to do because you have to guard your heart. This is all talking about how to guard your heart. The Bible even says this, may he strengthen your hearts. This is jumped in the New Testament on you. Paul writing to the Thessalonians says, I'm praying that God strengthens your heart. Because guarding is not enough. We got to strengthen it because it's getting weak. But this is what happens, right? This is what happens in congestive heart failure. What's happening is your heart starts getting weak. I believe we have this real problem with our spiritual hearts today. And I think we're weak. And I actually think our hearts are failing. And I don't think it's one thing we do. I think it's 100 things. And I think that we're just not willing to do what's necessary in order to strengthen our heart, to get the stuff out of it. He says, someday you're going to be in the holy presence of our God. You need to have your heart strengthened. You're going to make it to there. In Psalm, the psalmist says this, wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart. If you're waiting on the Lord, if you're just focused on him, then he'll strengthen your heart. Psalmist should know something about that. But the other thing we realize, if you read what Jesus is saying, because he starts putting all the pieces together, he said, your heart determines everything, including the fruit in your life. See, now that's interesting because I'm sitting there asking God, why don't I see the fruit in the church the way I saw? And I just feel like God's saying, because the church's heart is failing. And because of that, they're not producing the fruit because their heart's failing, because your heart determines your fruit. That's what Jesus says. I'm not making this up. Jesus says this. He says, look, a good tree doesn't bear bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit. For every tree is known by its own fruit. Men don't gather figs from thorns or gather grapes from bramble bush. A good man, watch this, out of the good treasure of his heart brings forth good. And an evil man, out of the evil treasure in his heart, brings forth evil. For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Where's the fruit coming from? It's from the heart. Jesus says you're going to have an abundance of treasure in your heart. And out of that abundance of treasure, good things come out. And if you don't have an abundance, bad things come out. The fruit you're seeing in the church is dependent upon the heart of the church. Your heart, my heart. Not just their hearts, our hearts. What are we doing about that? And then he has this at the very end. I love this because he's got to throw this in. But why do you call me Lord and not do the things which I say? This is the zinger. He lets that for the end. He starts telling you all this stuff about the heart and everything. He says, and then you call me Lord, but you're not doing what I'm telling you to do. There are a lot of people who are calling themselves Christians, but they won't do what Jesus said. By definition, you're not a Christian. Christian, by definition, is one who follows the teachings of Jesus Christ. And he's saying, you're calling me Lord, and you're not doing what I'm telling you to do. Those don't work. No Lord isn't a sentence. You can't say no to your Lord. And this is what he's telling us. And here's the other thing is that a lot of times we see the results of it. We're getting the symptoms. And the symptoms ought to scare us, and they're not. Because the heart has a function. Now, here is the question that I asked myself. I'm standing in the middle of Quiet Acres when this thought hit me, and I'm saying, wait a minute, God. Are you telling me that the human heart shows the way that the spiritual heart works? The spiritual heart works the way the human heart works. And God says, no. I'm telling you the human heart works the way the spiritual heart works. See, God created us. He created our spirit. He created our body. And I believe he deliberately patterned the human heart after the spiritual heart. So we would have something we could see and understand it better because it's so important. So what is the function of the human heart? Because I think that'll tell us something about the spiritual heart. Well, the function of the human heart's interesting. I'm not going to go through everything I've read about the human heart in the past couple of weeks. I'm not going to show you all these diagrams. It'll probably make everybody never eat spaghetti again. But the human heart has two purposes. It has one purpose of getting blood, which is the life force, into all the different parts of the body that's necessary. But this is interesting. When the impurities come in, it takes over making sure they get out. In other words, when you're getting something in from your body that's bad, like carbon dioxide, the heart makes sure it goes to the lungs, because the lungs are going to breathe in, make oxygen, and make these things called hemoglobins, and infuse it into the blood. And then the heart's going to take that good stuff and send it to the rest of the body. If you eat something that's not good for your body, it takes it and it pushes it out to the place that's going to clean it, which is your liver. Right? So your heart has two functions. Your heart, it's to pump the good stuff to where it has to go. But the other purpose of your heart, and of course there's a lot, but the two main purposes are it pumps out the good stuff and it sends the bad stuff to where it can get cleansed. I found that interesting because there's a lot of bad stuff that happens in our lives. There's a lot of bad things that happen in our lives. And the spiritual heart, I believe, is designed to pump that where it's going to get cleansed and get it out of our system. And what goes on, by the way, what the doctor was saying is if you're overloading your body with all this stuff that your heart can't possibly take care of it all, it eventually starts failing. And when it says congestive heart failure, that means the congestion, you wonder what congests in the heart? Blood congests in the heart. You get in the chamber and it's not coming out because your heart's just tired. You can't pump it out anymore. And I think in the same way, I think our spiritual heart just gets tired. We keep putting so much junk in it that it's wearing it out instead of what we should be doing, which is helping it by giving it good stuff. So the function of the spiritual heart, what to do with the impurities. Now, I'm going to show you something. We've looked at this before. This is my favorite parable. This is Jesus' first parable. It's the parable of the sower. And we looked at this many different ways. But I want to look specifically about something. I think we had this scripture a couple weeks ago, but we'll look at it again under the context of the heart. He's talking about, I'm not there yet. Okay, I'm sorry. Defiling a person. I'm on my scriptures wrong. Okay. He says, look, you understand that what goes into the mouth defiles the person, but what comes out of the mouth, it's not what goes into the mouth that defiles a person. He's talking spiritually. But what comes out of the mouth, that defiles the person. And here's why. Don't you see that whatever goes into the mouth passes through the stomach and is expelled, but what comes out of the mouth proceeds from the heart, and it is what is defiling the person. That's what he's saying. For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, false witness, slander, etc. These defile a person. So what Jesus is saying is, when what's coming out of the mouth is telling you what's in the heart. So this is a warning sign. If things are coming out that aren't good and not God, then that means it's in your heart and you need to cleanse it out. Okay, so let me now jump over the parable of the sower, because there is this thing about how to remove impurities right in there. Let me show you this. So he tells them about the parable of the sower, about the sower going to sow the land, and he's sowing seeds and he's throwing them, and some fall on different lands, and different ones operate differently. I'm going to focus on the second one. So he talks about the ones that go on the side of the road. We're not going to talk about that today. I want to talk about this one that goes to the place, what they call the rocky places. Now watch this. Rocky places where they do not have much soil. It's not like, when I always thought it was throwing on the rocks, but there's actually, I don't know if you've ever been any kind of a natural, like the park would be a good example, that's been left alone. What happens is the water starts eroding the soil, and it starts sweeping it over the hill. And there'll be these rocks that catch it, and there'll be this really fertile soil inside of these like cluster of rocks. The soil is amazingly fertile though. It's like really dark, good soil. And if you look at that, what he's saying is when it falls there, man, it springs up right away. It looks like it's going to go great. It's like you just threw it in a Miracle Grow. It's like, wow, that's going to go great. The problem is beneath it's rock. The rocks are things in your life, kind of like unforgiveness. That'd be a rock. Hidden sin. That's buried. No one else sees it. It looks like you've got nothing but fertile soil, but it's deep inside of you, and it's buried, but it's there. He said, what happens is this. It spreads up and leads you, but it has no depth to the soil. There's no way for it to grow. And so what actually ends up happening, this is true, when the roots hit that, they can't go down any further. They actually spin around and start coming back up. And then what happens is the sun comes out and it burns it, scorches it. He says, because they had no depth of soil, when the sun rose, they were scorched. And because they had no root, they just withered away and died. I want to talk about that because I think this describes an awful lot of people who I see in the church, because it seems like they're going great. At first they go, they find him and Jesus, I love him, and God's so wonderful, he's been so good to me. And it's just like their faith just springs up like boom. But then they fall away, and you wonder why. Well, this is why. Because what's happening to them is what should be causing them to grow is killing them. And this is what he says, what he's explaining to his disciples. They said, well, explain this to us. He said, well, I will. And so he breaks them all down. But here's what he says about this one. He says, the person who received the stone on the rocky places, the stony places, this is the one who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. But watch this. He has no root in himself. He has no root in himself. What does that mean? That means that he doesn't think he needs to be fully righteous because the preacher is, or the rabbi is, or their friends are. And they try to pull their righteousness into their lives. They say the same things they say. They try to say the same stories they tell. They want to be like them. But they have no root of their own. They're trying to bar others. And because of that, he says what happens next is tribulation and persecution arises, and immediately they stumble. Now, no one likes persecution or tribulation, but I'm going to take you back for a second and show you what he's talking about, because here was the example he gave. He said, the sun rose. When the sun rose, and then later he tells them, this is what the sun is, persecution and tribulation. There are three things a plant needs to grow: air, water, and sunlight. 4 if you add nutrients. Sunlight is a huge part of a plant's growth. You can't have a plant grow in this room without the lights, without sunlight coming in. We could plant it in the best soil, the best nutrients, water it every day. It will die because it's not getting sunlight. Right? You need sunlight to make plants grow. Jesus is saying the sunlight comes, and this is what it is, tribulation and persecution. Because I don't think those two things fit together. When Jesus was talking about the sunlight coming, I wasn't thinking that was tribulation. But he's saying that should hit you and make you grow. Along with the other things. You need those too. But this should make you grow. But tribulation isn't making them grow. It's making them wither and die and fall away. Why? Because their heart's not right. They have no root of their own. They're holding on to their rocks. They haven't let go of any of that. All the hidden sin in their life, they won't let go of it. I will not forgive that person. I will not. I have a right to be angry. This is a sin that no one else really knows about but me. It's not hurting anybody. And they're holding on to it. And there's no way for the heart to work the way it's supposed to. Because what's supposed to happen here, when tribulation comes, is you're supposed to turn to Jesus. And it's supposed to build your faith. Because this is what happens with healthy plants. Ever see a sunflower? You can see it really well, a sunflower. Sun goes away. They're like, whoa. Sunlight comes out, bing, face it, right? That's what sunlight does with plants. That's how they work. But when you don't have a root of themselves, then they can't grow. Now, the word tribulation is interesting because it means pressing together. It means pressure or stress. Does stress cause you to fall away? Because I know a lot of people, when they get stressed out, they're not here. I got some stuff I got to take care of. When I get all taken care of, I'll be back. But right now, I just got so much going on in my life. I can't possibly come to God. I'll fix it and I'll be back. Right? They're trying to fix everything on their own. They got no root of God in their lives. They don't know what to do with it. They just go back to their old ways. I'm going to go back and do what I was doing before I met God. And God's saying, no, we're supposed to be building in you a new creature. So what they're saying is, I'll be back later because the stress is stressing me out, and I can't deal with this right now. What is stress? Stress is an emotion caused by an unpleasant circumstances you cannot control. That'll stress you out. Now, there's physical stress too, but I'm talking about emotional stress. Why are you emotionally stressed? Because something's happening, it's bad, and you don't know how to stop it. Right? Stress. Anxiety. I don't know how to make this go away. I don't like it. It's bad. I want it to go away. I just can't. Everything I do doesn't seem to work. I'm stressed. Guess what? That's sunlight. According to Jesus, this is supposed to cause growth in you. Well, it's not working, Jesus, because it's stressing me out. It's making me want to quit. Yeah, that's because you're trying to handle what you should be giving somewhere else. See, the heart was designed to take that and give it to something else. When the heart sees junk coming in through the blood, it says, oh, liver, here, this is for you. Clean it for me, right? We need more oxygen. Lungs, this is for you. The heart pushes it out to the parts of the body that were designed to help cleanse it. God gave you these things that we're not using. The thing that is supposed to cleanse the stress for your life is trust in the Lord. And we know that because he tells us that. He says, listen, these things I'm speaking to you clearly and plainly so that you may have peace. The next line, love it. He said, I'm going to tell you something right now that's going to give you peace. God, Jesus, tell me that. Yeah. In this world, you will have tribulation. Thanks, Jesus. I thought you were going to tell me you're going to take all the tribulation away. That would bring me peace. And he said, no. In this world, you're going to have tribulation. You're going to have stress. Same word. You're going to have pressure. But it's okay. Take courage. I've overcome the world. See, we're supposed to be giving this to him. I can't deal with this problem. That's okay. Because I have something I can hand it to that can, and that's the Holy Spirit. That's Jesus. I'm not supposed to be dealing with this. I've said before, we're sheep, not donkeys. Sheep are not load-bearing animals. Donkeys are. You can load up a donkey, man. I've seen those people going down the trail in Mexico. He's like baggage up like the sky. You can load up a donkey, but Jesus doesn't say you're donkeys. He says you're sheep. You never put anything on a sheep. Sheep wasn't made to bear burden. You're sheep. You're not supposed to have stress. You're supposed to give your stress away to Jesus and trust him to take care of it. If you can't do that, that means there's something wrong here. That means there's something wrong with our heart. It's not working right, because what we should be doing is handing that stuff off so we don't have the stress. Paul, sitting in a prison, chained to a wall after being beaten, and the next day he has to defend himself in court. And if he doesn't do a good job of it, they're going to kill him. He starts singing hymns. How do you do that? I've had meetings with my boss in the morning. I couldn't sleep the night before. No one's going to beat me or throw me in jail. I just might get fired. I don't know. But it's like, compared to what Paul's going through, I wasn't up the night before singing hymns for the Lord. Something's wrong with my heart, though. Paul's heart was right. I don't need this. I want to pass this off. I want to praise the Lord. I want to focus on what matters, which is Jesus, and nothing else does, and so I'm just going to drop that. See, the spiritual heart was designed to take that stress and pass it on to the Lord through trust to be cleansed. Trust is supposed to grow. Something that I had to learn over my life is I serve a great God, so I don't have to be great. Right? That's been a relief for me as I've slowly learned it. I serve a great God, so I don't have to be great. He is. This is from Proverbs. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. In other words, being wise in your own eyes is evil in God's sight. I'm supposed to be building a heart that actually helps me heal. I'm supposed to be taking out the junk in my life that's keeping that from happening. Watch this. A joyful heart makes a cheerful face. But by sorrow of the heart, the spirit is broken. The heart of him who has understanding seeks knowledge, but the mouth of fools feeds on foolishness. All the days of the afflicted are evil. But he who has a cheerful heart has a continual feast. We're supposed to have a heart that heals us spiritually. What we've done is we've held on to a bunch of stuff that we really enjoy, you know? It's the spiritual equivalency of ice cream sundaes and cheesecake and fatty burgers. These things that we just love spiritually, right? They make us feel good spiritually. You know, I could fire up a playlist that's all about victory for you. Victory in life. You know, God wants you victorious. He wants to make all your dreams come true. There's a bunch of songs like that. I could preach that sermon, and we'd all leave here feeling great. But we're killing our heart. Because that's just fatty burgers for a spirit. I believe that if we're going to be the church we're supposed to be, we're going to have to learn not to make one decision for God, but daily decisions, dozens of them. I think we're going to have to get to the point where we say, man, I really love that. I really want to do that. But I love Jesus more. And I think if we can get there, I think we could see our spiritual hearts heal. And I think we might start seeing the kind of manifestation of the Holy Spirit in our lives that they were seeing. But I wonder if we're willing to do that. It's easy to make one decision. You know, when I grew up, that was all you had to do. Make one decision for the Lord. It was the weakest thing I've ever heard of. You ever been in one of these services? Every head bowed, every eye closed. If you would like to give your heart to the Lord, would you just slip up your hand? You guys ever been in these services? I was in a bunch of them. Did I see that hand? And if no one look around, I'll call your name out. It's like, well, this is the weakest little thing in ever, you know. And it was all done. You prayed in your heart. You didn't have to tell anybody. There you go. That decision for the Lord was made. One time. Now you're always saved. I don't know who's going to heaven and who's going to hell. I really don't. I don't. Not my job to know. I don't know. But I'll tell you this, that person's heart's dying. Because you can't make one decision for God. You have to make dozens. Every day. And we have to be willing to do it. Next week I'm going to go through a whole series of stuff we need to do to get the junk out of our lives and try to get our hearts to heal. But is this how your spiritual heart's working today? I mean, can you say, yeah, actually, I'm good with this. That's kind of how I am. When stress happens, I hand to the Lord, and I just keep cheering on. No matter what happens to me, I just smile because I know Jesus overcame. I'm good. Or are you like, I'm not Paul. I'm not Peter. I'm nowhere near them because I haven't made the choices that they've made. Daily choices. If that's you, if you're in a situation where, I'm praying and my prayers don't go nowhere. I hear that. I'm praying, nothing's happening. I'm reading the Bible, it's so boring. I fall asleep. I find a hard time praying for people, which is really, and I got some certain people in my life it's really difficult for me to deal with, and I'm really stressed out right now with everything that's going on. If that's you, good news. Your heart isn't dying. You're killing it. The question is, what are you willing to do about that? Would you all please pray with me? Heavenly Father, I pray that you'll encourage us and challenge us. We're not who we're supposed to be. None of us are. But you are. You are the good God who never changes. You have not changed since the days David walked this earth, since the day Peter and Paul walked this earth, for the days you walked this earth. You're the same God. Your power is the same. It's never changed. And you come to us the same way you came to Abraham. Rise up and follow me. Help us to understand that every step that leads us to you is a step that leads us where we need